The sports world lost a legend over the weekend, former Celtic great Bill Russell. He was a trailblazer both on and off the court. Another Boston legend, Tom Brady, was asked about Bill Russell on Monday. Here's what Tom Brady had to say.
Yeah, I knew him pretty well. You know, I had a lot of time up there in Boston and got to know him, and he was a very impactful figure. Even back to my early days with the Patriots. You know, my second year training camp, he came and spoke to our team, and really an imposing figure. You know, he had just a great presence about him, and obviously what he overcame in his career was pretty unbelievable. And it was a sad day.
Just one of those guys that he just felt like he'd always be around. Like like my entire lifetime.
Like the wise wizard.
Hear about Bill. Yeah, like he's just always going to be here.
Yeah.
And that's what was it. It didn't want to register for me on Sunday when I saw the announcement that was made by his family, because it's just, you've always heard it like in hushed tones about Bill Russell and what he meant to sport. And he was in his heyday really before I was born. And I was too young to be paying attention to basketball then, but 11 titles and 2 as a player coach, and greatness all around, and also a great member of the community and a leader in many, many ways. So, given the impact that he had on the NBA, let's do a little draft today on the most influential figures in NFL history. Chris, I will give you, as I always do, for the most part, the first pick.
You're a nice guy. You really are. I think it's hard, actually, to find a guy or just at least a player that I think fits that role of Bill Russell in the NFL. Maybe we don't have as many of those type of guys, but like you said, Russell's special. The times, the 60s, African-American, the city of Boston, the way he handled himself professionally on and off the court, very special that way. I'm going to go with Jim Brown to be that guy. Jim Brown's the first guy that came to my mind when I thought about, wait, who's that guy in the NFL? Jim Brown has been at the forefront of some of the culture issues we've had in our country, certainly. And I still think, Jim Brown is the first really famous African-American NFL football player, where it was just like, man, this guy is different and he's special and he's playing at another level than the rest of us here. So, there's so much he has done on the field for being special there in Cleveland, but the activist he was off the field, I think he's really the only guy I think that can maybe even rival Russell as far as that's concerned in the NFL.
And he walked away with gas in the tank.
Right.
He walked away from the game when he still had plenty left, and he was just unstoppable. Those highlights, just incredible. It was man among boys stuff, the way that he played the game of football and the impact that he had. And look, I'm looking at it more broadly influential, and the NFL has been around more than 100 years, and I remember this from late last year when he passed, John Madden. The fact that he influenced in so many different ways as a Super Bowl winning coach, as the greatest broadcaster of all time, as the name and the face, and he'll be on the cover of this year's version of the video game that for a lot of kids is a great way to learn about football.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to somebody about this not long ago, and just the idea that kids play those games, they understand routes, they understand coverages, they go to 7-on-7 camps, and they know what to do. They know that it's all baked into them from the moment they first start playing Madden, and they see, there's a lot of real defenses and real offenses in there, and you learn the game in a way that we never had an opportunity to learn it growing up. At least I didn't. I mean, you had a Super Bowl winning quarterback in your house, but from my perspective, just watching it on TV and getting the electric football game and lining all the pieces up and turning it on and watching them spin around in a circle.
Yeah, I'm with you there. He would have been, if I didn't take Jim Brown first, I would have taken John Madden. He'd have been the guy. So I think you're right on. I mean, yeah, what he did announcing, of course, coaching. And then I think, that, like you said, the biggest influence he had really is, the game itself, the video game. And just, bringing young kids and making the game more fun and more relatable to the players and all that. Very special influence on the history of the NFL. No question about that with John Madden. This is where it gets tough because I got a lot of names, but I'm not sure if I know any of them really jump out maybe more than the other. I think the guy I'm going to go with next, though, is Vince Lombardi. I am. I mean, I just think overall, I know maybe he didn't have quite the, effect on American culture, maybe like a Jim Brown and being an activist that way. But I do think, I stand corrected. I do think he had an effect on American culture in a lot of ways. He became the poster child of, hey, football, hey, your coach is going to yell at you, but you got to work as a team, and it's all getting better. It's all about getting better. And, I mean, I know my high school coach, Mike Mielo, an Italian-American, he had pride about, being like Vince Lombardi and approaching it that way. Lombardi had so many influences on the game, let alone, hey, just the establishment of that the NFL was better than the AFL in the first 2 Super Bowls, the dynasty there, putting Green Bay, Wisconsin on the map, and then really being, Mike, here's another one, the first offensive mind as the Green Bay sweep, right, Mike? The Green Bay sweep. They were the first team to go, wait, we want to run the Green Bay sweep every week. So we got to start to figure out how we're going to change the blocking according to the team we're going to play. And they were the first team to really make calls at the line of scrimmage, hey, do this, do that, so they could run the play that they wanted to and that they had mastered. So that's where I look at him as having a lot of influence in some different ways.
I've got to go with George Halas next, just because I don't know that there would be an NFL without George Halas.
Yeah.
When you consider all the years he spent as player, coach, owner of the Bears, one of the founding fathers of the National Football League, coached into his 70s, I believe. Just unbelievable figure. Not 70s, maybe mid to late 60s. And I think for him, it was, and I remember looking this up, trying to figure out how long Bill Belichick can do it. He got to the point where he just couldn't move on the sidelines. He couldn't run down and yell at the official when he wanted to, and he realized that was the time for him to stop coaching and just be the owner of the team. But a towering figure. And one of the reasons why, we've talked in the past about how it's frustrating that the Bears aren't better, that city is just so wired to support football. And George Halas's legacy it should boost this team. Just the mere mention of his name should cause the team to be better than it's been. And it's just one of the weird conundrums of the NFL that the Bears aren't better when you consider what George Halas brought to that organization and brought to that city.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think he's maybe greater than Lombardi as far as that influence is concerned. But, yeah, it's right up there. I think when I think about the two, prominent head coach figures in the history of football, those are the two that I think come to my mind maybe more than everybody else. All right, now this is where I'm stuck between, and here I am. I'm just going to talk it out with you. I'm stuck between Paul Brown, Al Davis, and even Sammy Baugh. All right, you know what? I'm gonna go with Al. I'm gonna give Al some love here because I think Al is definitely influential in of course, pushing the boundaries of the sport. It just as far as in all ways and making the sport a bigger business, more money, everything that way. And then, of course, his innovative coaching style and everything that he is the modern day, Jerry Jones of the Robert Kraft, the guy that was kind of steering the league in the right direction. So I'll go with Al Davis as my last pick.
I've got names on my list like Art Rooney.
Yeah.
I've got Al Davis, too. Jerry Jones is on there. I'm going with Pete Rozelle.
Okay.
Because Pete Rozelle was the commissioner of the NFL from 1960 to 1990. When you think about everything that happened and how the league ascended and how, as it became more profitable and popular, it could have fractured. The AFL came along. They found a way to absorb it. They found a way to maintain revenue sharing through the TV money that kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They caught and surpassed baseball on his watch. They fought off the WFL. They fought off the USFL. And he, as of 1990, when he handed the reins to Paul Tagliabue, he had everything set up for the league that we now enjoy 30
it's a good
plus
pick by
years
you.
later. Take a break. We'll wrap up this Tuesday edition of PFT Live right after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.